Hello, my name is Renee Baribeau, the Practical Shaman, and welcome again to the Shaman's Cave.
Hi, I'm Sandra Ingerman, and welcome to the Shaman's Cave. It's a beautiful day in Santa Fe today.
Oh, we've been experiencing some inclement rain over here. It's kind of cloudy, overcast, a little bit cold for the desert. As you can see, I'm in my, longer cape and, snuggling in with the fire. So I hope everyone's doing well wherever you are and you're not buried in snow or in a heat storm so we're excited. Today we're going to talk about scarcity.
Yeah, and scarcity is a very interesting, it's an interesting energy that was planted. It was actually planted into us by our authority figures. And we were really taught from a very young age, take care of yourself. Nobody else is going to take care of you. There's not enough. My parents grew up in the Depression and there really wasn't enough for them. And so, they really taught me that and taught me it's all about taking care of yourself. And I don't have to list this. We're intelligent, conscious people listening to the Shaman's Cave. You know how our collective is lost in scarcity consciousness and how we have to always compete to get ahead, to get what we want. And I just want to give an example of another way of being. One of my amazing students who's training with me to be a teacher, and her work is incredibly brilliant. And she's an avid researcher, and so she's always posting these incredible articles. And there was an article that really struck my heart. And it was about the Budo tradition in Africa. And an anthropologist showed up and was going to do a game with all the children in the tribe. And he hid candy by a tree, and he wanted to watch he just wanted to observe. Anthropologists like to observe. They don't like to participate. They like to learn by observing. And he wanted to observe how the children would compete for each other in this African tribe for this candy. And the opposite happened. What happened is when, the signal was given, okay, it's time, everybody run for the candy, all the children, and it was a lot of them, they all held hands and ran together. And they all found the candy together and they all shared it with each other. And the anthropologist was really, he was taken aback by this. He wasn't expecting it. Children fight over candy. They don't share candy, they fight over candy. And what the children said is, we're one community. Why would you uplift one and put another one down? Why would you even consider doing that? We're all one community. We're all in this together. We all support each other for getting the best, and we share with each other everything that we get. What a different perspective than what we're seeing in the world that we're living in today.
Absolutely. I think that there's some kind of a shift going on with the younger generation who are not buying into our need for things. I mean, we saw that with some of the small house movements, and they certainly have a different idea about climbing the corporate ladder. They're more concerned about, whether or not they have spaciousness around their work instead of, although they do expect to get paid more. It's funny, they expect to get paid more for doing less. And so that's kind of a different kind of a consciousness, where somebody like me who, works to the bone to get ahead of what, and what to get ahead of what, I already have the house. I already have the writing cabin. I have, what what am I trying to still get for self? And so this idea of that we can work together, and it's just so not corporate America. And it's just not. And even in our shaman communities, I think that there's this, like, the same kind of it trickles over, that there's let me get my little community and let's not, share our community. And like, I noticed that even on the Shaman's Cave wall, Sandra, when I'll post something of somebody else's, like one of your teachers was having a workshop and I posted it, and like everyone's like taken aback, like, oh, that you're sharing somebody else's workshop. And I'm thinking, like, well, because that's my thing is, well, if I put out yours, and there's an a reciprocity here, but it's not necessarily always reciprocated, because we're thinking, oh, there's only 10 students for me, 10 students for you, and if I take your student, they're not going to be my student. And that's just not serving us, as we need to run together towards this collective awakening, towards this collective personal healing, like the children in Ubamba.
I think it was called Ubuntu. Yeah.
Ubuntu. We need to gather. Like, imagine if we were all running towards the same finish line, or the same line. We don't want to finish, because that idea of a finish line actually implies a scarcity again.
Right.
The production cycle that I talk about in my work, about like that you're only as much as you can produce. And then when you hit that 50, 60, then you're not as productive as you were at 20, because thank God you get smarter or something. And then your value declines as your production decreases. And that is just not really beneficial to any of us at this moment.
No, absolutely not. And I get the same feedback as you, because I have my transmutation news, and I love to announce the work that other people are doing, and people are always questioning me about that. And just like you, Renee, we're all in this together. And what happens when we actually say, I can't support you because it's going to take away from me, we're actually not working. It's not that it's in an ethical way. We're not working with the power of flow and the power of abundance. And so when I wrote my book, Medicine for the Earth, which is an amazing book, that book was too esoteric for the public. It actually ended up selling well, but it was my most esoteric book. And boy, it almost killed me to write it because of the energy that was coming through. And I brought through some really powerful things. And one of the things that I talked about was abundance and scarcity in the book. And so first of all, one of the things that I started to learn is that the universe is only abundant. It's only abundant. There is no scarcity in the universe. And in one of my journeys, and I talked about this on one of our older programs, in one of my journeys, a long, long time ago, I was taken to the void. And the void is the place before creation. It's before the light. So Renee and I taught you how to be a light in the world, and we taught the process of transfiguration. That is the key of Medicine for the Earth. And so in transfiguration, we shapeshift into this amazing, brilliant light. But what happens to me is when I transfigure into the light of the universe, into the light of the Creator, into the light of my divine self, I immediately go to the void and I become the void. And the void is known in shamanism, and it's known in many spiritual traditions. In Buddhism, it's talked about the territory that's empty but yet full. And it is that place before creation happens. and everything forms in the void before it manifests on earth. And so I was asked to present at a scientific conference. Obviously, it was open to shamanism and other ways of thinking. And I talked about the medicine for the earth work and my work with the void, and that there's nothing you cannot create out of the void. There's nothing you cannot create out of the void. And there was a physicist there by the name of Mark Cummings, and he said to me, would you be willing to talk to me later, at one of the conference social events? And we sat up and we talked for hours, and Mark talked about the void as being the quantum plenum. That's the term that he used. And that from quantum physics, not all physicists would agree with this, but in quantum physics, it's understood that everything can be manifested out of the void, everything, that there's no reason for scarcity. And the one thing I just want to share before Renee brings in her amazing wisdom on this topic is the question that came up for me, and it's probably an ethical question that comes up for you, is if we can create anything from the void, do we just become more greedy? We can create all the money we want. We can create all the gasoline we want. We can create all the oil we want. We can create all the food we want, which from a shamanic point of view is understood, and from a physics point of view is understood. Do we just become more selfish? And so I journeyed a lot on this particular principle, and what my spirit said to me is if you could have everything that you want, you don't want much. And it's true. I mean, when that door is open and things start flowing in, you just say, stop, enough, I don't need this. And what's driving our greed and our selfishness is this principle that we live under, that there's not enough. But if we could actually manifest everything that we need, I know in my heart we would not be manifesting very much.
Well, that's kind of all relative too, because when I always refer back to this idea that you say that we're just that little blip in 4 billion years. So think about really, what do you need in 4 billion years of things? For me, I have a tenant leaving, and so they're taking the bed, and most of the other furniture in this little guest house is mine. And I was thinking okay, I'm online looking for, some furnishings. And then I'm looking at my bedroom set, which is now about 14, 15 years old. And I'm there well, wouldn't it be a nice time to, upgrade mine a little bit and, pass that along? And I was thinking I'm not a materialistic kind of person. I'm kind of more technologically gadgets, but everything conceptually sets us up for, the new iPhone that has 3 cameras,
right.
And I gotta have it because, I love to take pictures and share them on Facebook, and still it's about this bar, or if only Hay House would have published the book. Even these standards that we put ourselves that we're not even thinking are about our scarcity models. Oh, then I'm going to be famous, and then I'm going to have what I need. All of those things, and think in our lives. So it's our furniture, how we decorate at the holidays. All of these commercialized ideas get us really wrapped up in that we have to overachieve, overproduce, one of the Wind Clan people, I love it. She homeschools her children, and there's pictures of their family making a Christmas tree out of scraps. And and what a wonderful way of changing how we conceive of what we need when whether or not they have enough money or don't have enough money. But it isn't based on that. But what about the idea of bringing that creation into form that has a lot more meaning than just being able to go buy a new bedroom set. And it doesn't mean I'm probably not going to make my new headset or my new headboard, but you know, I could, because it's not that important to me. But this idea that if I get, then you're not going to have,
Right.
is really at the root of this. And I think in my own shamanic practice or my own shamanic evolution, that was something I really had to grow at as a teacher, was that, you know, when my students got to the place where they were starting to teach my work, or not my work, but their own work, and, you know, and going off, that there was like this, or that when my coaching clients were finished, there was always that little twang of, oh, they don't need me anymore, or, you know, they're going to go off. And I really had to grow through that. So if you're in that position where that's some of your karmic work to do, or your work to do, that was something that I really had. I will own that once I no longer felt like if I support my students, then I'm going to have enough anyway. That was like a big exponential leap for me. I don't know if you ever had to experience that earlier in your life, Sandra, or not, because you certainly are generous now.
Yeah, I mean, I still do. I never really had my students not wanting to stay in touch with me, so I never really felt like they were going away. They went to study with other teachers as well as with me. And in the very beginning, you know, that was a big hit of, God, you know, I've been doing this work and for all these years, why do you need somebody else? But I got over that really, really quickly. But I can experience it now that I'm in a different time in my life, and that it's time for me to not be as available to my students as I used to be. And I would imagine that people out there go, oh, that must be such a relief. You've been on email and answering letters all day long, 7 days a week, you know, since you started in the 1980s. But there's a I don't want to go back to that place again. There is a grieving process for me. There is a grieving process for me. It's not my identity. It's not that I am dealing with identity issues. I love being part of that day-to-day life of my students, and helping them with their own practices, helping them with their own teaching, helping them with their own clients. And so there's a sadness for me as I pull away from that. And I'm pulling away from that because it's healthy for me and it's healthy for my students. I had a dream once, before one of my trainings, that there's a bird nest outside of my kitchen window, and it's always, you know, the same birds come every year to nest. And so I had a dream one night. The nest is right out of my kitchen window. And one night I had a dream where the message in the dream was I was watching the mother bird keep her babies in the nest too long, and then they couldn't fly anymore. Mm. And the message was, you need to let your children fly. So I do, and it has nothing to do with scarcity consciousness or there's not enough, but there's always a grief with everything we let go of, because everything we let go of creates a change in our life. And it's important to grieve those changes. It's an important part of life, you know.
Absolutely. You know, and sometimes there's a place when you really do outgrow a teacher and it is time to move on. And the winds can be expedient like that. Like there's some people who have come in to teach the wind work with me, and you know, they've been here for a while. And there's some people like the eagles that I watch up at Whidbey Island. They you know, the wind comes and gives those eagles flight, and then they're long gone. And you know, that's okay too. And what happens in our society is that we start to take it personally, that it's about us. Well, it has nothing to do about us. I mean, just this morning, there was somebody gung-ho about, I'm going to sign up for this class and I'm going to take this, your shift now. I'm like, and they're like, well, where'd you go? Do you mind if I asked you? You were like all gung-ho, where did you go? And, and in my mind, I'm thinking like, I'm not a vegan. And this person wants a vegan teacher. And then I get a list back of like what was really going on in their lives. Not a thing to do with anything that I was teaching or anything that I was revealing. And
Right.
I'm like, well, how petty of you, Renee, to even think that it had anything to do with you at all, and so like how small are we really in the big scheme of things, that 4 billion cycle that I love that you talk about.
I know, yeah. Well, right now, I know that those of you who are watching instead of listening, I have the sun streaming in, and it's covering my hair and part of what I'm wearing for those of you who are listening and can't see. And I see everything that happens as an omen because I do a lot of Zoom things and I have not had this happen. And so I do believe the sun is trying to talk to us. And the sun is an amazing teacher for all of us because the sun is a teacher of abundance and no scarcity. I know that some of you live in areas where you go, look at the sun, it's taking over my face. It wants to have center stage right now.
Well, it all started when you started talking about the void, Sandra. So when you went into the void, I hopped over there and the sun all of a sudden boomed in. I'm there like, what's going on with Sandra's lighting today? And it's like, so there must be, I know you're going to take us on a journey here and I'm not sure if it has to do with the sunlight, but I wouldn't be surprised if we don't have some light on this journey.
Yeah, well, we're actually going to have darkness on this journey, but this is a message for us about abundance. Because the sun, I believe the sun is probably one of our greatest teachers about abundance. And I know that many of you live in areas where you wish the sun shone more, but the sun is always out. It's just we don't always see it. And the thing about the sun is it just gives. It just gives. And it doesn't need anything in return. There's no scarcity. There's no hunger for the sun. It's just giving us everything that we need to thrive. And where also, we've talked about this in Transfiguration, we are the sun ourselves. Inside of us, we're walking stars, we're sunlight, and there's an abundance. And the sun never efforts. It doesn't effort to shine. And the sun just gives and doesn't ask anything in return. And isn't that abundance? Isn't that part of the definition of abundance, is that there's always enough to be able to give. There's always enough to be able to give. So I think that the sun wanted to bring a message through for some of us today. And we'll see what the sun does with the lighting during this particular exercise. I don't think I can, unless I get up and close my shades, but I'd like to have, I do a lot of filming, and I don't like, again, it goes into scarcity consciousness when the film crews tell me they don't want to hear the birds singing or see the sun or hear the winds. So we don't live in a sterile environment. And so the sun is part of our teaching today. And so let's welcome the abundance of the sun into our lives. And so the exercise that I would like to lead you on, and we might, Renee and I will talk about this, we might chop this up into another session so that you can really delve into this exercise in a really strong way. There are many different teachings about manifestation, and I wrote about some of them again in Medicine for the Earth and in every single book since that, because it's a passion of mine to teach people that they can create anything that their soul desires, not their ego, because our ego isn't smart enough to know. And so some of the ancient teachings on this is that it's very important for you to be able to open all your senses of seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, smelling. So let's just say, for example, that I would love to see some rain. I live in the desert, and I would love to see some rain. I'm not trying to manipulate the environment in any way. I'm just doing my work. And so I go into a journey or a meditation, or I drink some tea, or I wash the dishes, but I get into a nice altered state, or right before I go to sleep at night. And then I experience myself in the scene. I'm in the scene. I'm not watching it like a movie or a TV program. I'm actually living the life I want to be living. And so I experience this whole scene that I'm standing in or doing my activities, and I'm in my house, let's say, and I hear the sound of the rain on the roof. And I go, oh, it's raining. And I run to the window, and I open up the window, and I open it up, and oh, I take in, I fully absorb. This is not in my imagination. I'm doing it for real. I'm making it happen. And then I'm hearing the birds singing because they're finally getting the water they need. And I'm hearing children laughing as they're running around in the puddles outside. And I feel so good knowing that the land has been fed. And I go outside, and I open up my mouth, and I take in some of the rain into my mouth. So I fully live what I want to see happen, fully live it with every single sense engaged. And I step into that dream, and my eyes are living out from that. They're seeing out from that life. I'm not looking into that life. I'm seeing out from that life. And I'm experiencing it as if it's happening right now, not next week, but right now. And my heart has to be really into it. This has to be something that my heart wants. So these are the elements of manifestation that I teach, but the exercise that we're going to do today brings in another element, which is the void, because the void is where everything is created. Everything that exists on this planet started its creation in the void, before the sunlight. And the void is such a fertile, I wrote in all my books, and my editors just had to agree to it. I call it, the void is unpotentiated energy. It's filled with potential that hasn't happened yet. And it's just fertile ground for everything that we want to manifest, to see come into this lifetime. And so I take those same principles that I just shared with you, but I travel up to the void, and I do my manifestation work of seeing, hearing, feeling, smelling, tasting. And what I add to that is I would add to that, let's say I'm working on the rain in Santa Fe, I would add to that Renee saying, Sandra, you did it. You did it. The rain's coming. So you're seeing people acknowledging the fact that you were able to manifest this dream. So I actually work with this for pretty much everything. Again, if it's just something that my ego wants, it might or might not manifest. I can tell you the things I've manifested just from my ego, I really wish I would.
You have a list of those for sure.
I ruined my life on so many levels because I can manifest. And when I manifest what my ego wants, it's like, oh no, you didn't tell me that this was going to be what happened.
Oh,
So,
I've had experiences of that. I get it.
yeah, so what we're going to do in this journey, as I'm covered by the sun, is we're going to journey actually to the void. And everybody always asks me, where is the void and how do you get to the void? And you get to the void only by intention, only by intention. So as I drum, what you want to do is you want to set your intention that you want to go back to the territory before creation, which is the void, that place of unlimited, unpotentiated energy, fertile ground. And as you're there, you want to start to set your scene of the life that you want, or something that you want, the job that you want, the relationship that you want. Picture it, hear the sounds. What would it sound like living with this job, living a life in this job? What would be the conversations going back and forth between you and your coworkers? What would be the conversations going back and forth with your new lover, your new partner? What would it feel like in your body? What would the smells be? Really, we did a show on how we've lost the ability to open up our imaginary senses because we're so flooded with what we get from the media and our devices. So let yourself dream with all your senses and let yourself dream big. And then we're going to watch as the void starts to undulate like gelatin, and you're going to birth that scene onto the earth. You're going to let that come through the gelatin onto the earth and form. And I've been teaching this practice for 20 years, and I've been doing it for myself, and it works well. So Renee, was I clear in those?
Oh my word, it's just like, okay. Yeah. And one of the things you said there that I just would like to reiterate is that, as she said, what your soul desires, and I call it in my work, what you really need. It's kind of funny. You call it your soul's desire. I call it what you really need, because what I thought, even at the beginning of the conversation, I'm going to go fill up my shift class as big as possible. And then as we're going through this, I'm like, well, is that what my soul desires?
Right.
Is that really what my soul desires in this moment? So I'm excited. I'm ready to go with you, Sandra, to the void.
Okay. And you can actually do this for another person. So
okay.
That works out well too. So I will guide you in this, and we'll just take a moment to get centered. I'll see if I can, let's see.
Do you want to fix your sunlight, or are you good?
Well, I'm trying to figure out what's happening with the sun here, because I don't usually have this.
I know. It's like, there must be like you must be supposed to.
Yeah, I'm just going to try to turn on a couple of lights and see what happens.
The sunlight is undulating, Sandra. You see undulating on your seat. Like, it's like, this is the void. You're not getting rid of me.
Well, the sun asked me to go to the Arctic, and it said it had a delightful surprise for me if I went to the Arctic to greet it. So I'm going to call this an omen for our entire community, that the sun has come into this exercise. It's asking all of us to greet it, and it will produce an amazing delight we will see our greatest dreams manifesting through the sun, through the void, through the sun, onto this great earth. Okay, so here we go. So what I'd like to ask all of you to do right now is to imagine your energy dropping out of your head and going down deep into your heart. So that imagine yourself actually having eyes in your heart. So that you're actually stepping onto the role of the shaman. And the role of the shaman is to see through their heart and not their ordinary eyes. And as you sit in your heart, I'd like you to focus on an intention that's important to your heart, not to your mind, an intention that's important to your heart. And take some really deep breaths and focus on that intention. And I will pick up my drum and lead you on the next step of the process. So using your intention and following the desire from your heart, what's your greatest heart desire? Use your intention to imagine yourself traveling way up beyond the earth, beyond the sun, to the darkness of the void, the amazing place right before creation. And what I like to do in the void is I like to just float in the void for a while, because it's a place of no gravity. And it's a place where I can let go of my stresses. It's a place where I can relax my mind, my body, and my soul, and be fed by the darkness and the fullness of this place. There's nothing here, but yet you can feel so much support and magic of the energy of this landscape. And now start to form the dream that your heart is asking for. What would your life look like? Look at all the visuals, all the colors, all the people, all the nature beings that would be with you in this world that you're living in. What would it sound like? Would you be very quietly working on a craft? Would you be talking on the phone? Would you be teaching an online class? Would you be at work talking to others? Would you be at a completely romantic dinner with a new partner of your dreams? I'm just trying to give you some examples. Would you like to be a better gardener? Imagine your house filled with the healthiest, most colorful plants. Listen to the conversations with the people that you're with, if you are with people. Listen to the sounds of nature, the wind. Maybe there's rain. Maybe you can see the snow falling. Maybe the sun is shining so bright. It's lighting up your whole entire life. and the scene that you're living through. So keep engaging all of your senses. Bring more and more elements into your life. It's almost like furnishing a house. Bring it all in. Sit on the chair. Don't look at the chair. Sit on the couch. Don't look at the couch. Move around in your life. Don't look at it. You're in it. And your heart wants it so badly. Imagine it fully. Step into the dream as fully as you can. And when you feel that you have the most important elements formed, watch as the void starts to move. It's almost like jello. It starts to undulate. It starts to move. And the energy opens up where there's a space where you can let your dream fall to earth and take its rightful place on earth. Your work is done, so you know how to get back to the void to continue. But now it's time for you to use your senses to travel back to the room that you're journeying in right now. Come back and sit down on the floor or on your bed or on a chair. Feel yourself really present, but feel your heart completely opened, knowing that you've also manifested your heart's desire. Our work is done only for right now. How was that?
Well, you know, it's always curious to me when you think you're going someplace for one thing and there's something else that comes up. So, and I'll be a little transparent here. For the last couple of weeks, I've been realizing that, you know, for 6 years when I was writing the book, I'm there like, my life's too full for somebody else, you know, and for, you know, my too busy. And then about a week ago when I was taking a wind walk, there was like, well, who am I going to share the next parts of my life with? You know, like this whole idea of like that there was this longing and a calling that it was time that, you know, all my friends are sick of, you know, being, you know, they've been watching me do this grind for 20 years, but it's like, well, who's going to be excited about the next parts of my life with me, or who can I share that with, type of thing. And that when you mentioned that in the void, it was like, all of a sudden it was like, oh, is it not so much about that I'm going to just be teaching and doing, but that there might be a possibility and opening that there would be somebody to share that with.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, that's going to make me cry.
Yeah, I would love for that for you, Renee. I think that would be really amazing. So yeah, I hope that you will continue the work in the void. You know, what I find for myself is, you know, there are different ways that manifestation works, and I'll be really honest with you, as Renee was transparent, there's a place in the manifestation work that I'm still working with. I do manifestation work well. I can't manifest everything I want because the spirits oftentimes have a lesson plan for me. And if I manifested, if I got rid of every one of my health issues, the way my heart is being blown open and how much more love I can emanate into the world, that would probably stop. The spirits are saying, you're not cooked yet. That's what they say to me. You're not finished being cooked. So sometimes our challenges need to stay as our challenges because we're still being cooked. We're not ready yet to be served as this new meal. But for those things that I can manifest that aren't, it's part of my lesson plan to do what I feel passionate about, or to bring in things into my life that I'm passionate about. I tend to repeat the work over and over and over again. And I was very, very influenced by Neville, who was a mystic back in around the 1930s, 1940s. He was born in Barbados during the time of the Depression. And so he would talk to audiences of thousands of people, helping them to manifest money and to manifest a place to live. And he was quite successful at his work. And I actually have done quite a bit of research on Neville. I'm not an expert on him. There are other people who are. But some of the greatest mystics of all time have said that the thing that Neville had that other people just don't have is his ability to concentrate. And your ability to concentrate is the key to being able to do your manifestation work. You have to be able to focus. You have to be able to concentrate. You have to do this at times when it really works for you. And so I work as Neville taught, where I do my manifestation work every day. But I've also seen amazing magic happen when I have a dream. It was a spontaneous dream. I wasn't doing what we were doing on this talk. I just happened to be having this spontaneous daydream of, wouldn't it be wonderful if? And all of a sudden, I see a balloon go off into the sky, and I know that the universe took it and is going to make it so. But I can say that most of my spontaneous gifts that work like that, that manifested within 24 hours, were things I did not want.
Oh, we got lots of stories for that. Maybe they'll come up in our next talk about jealousy. We can add.
That's right.
Oh.
Yeah, and so I just want to encourage everybody, if you want to find your own way, there's no right way to do this, but repeat it. Keep on doing it. Don't give up. And only do this practice when you have time to do it, so that you can really put your concentration into it. And my God, I know Renee and I would love to see the stories of what comes to you out of this practice. And so it's a true delight, I know, for both of us to talk about this, because it's the time on the planet where we've been told we can't do this, we can't do that, we don't have the power for this, we don't have the skill for that, we don't have the creativity. And what if we could create it all as a collective of love, working together to manifest the best for all of life? I'm going to leave you with the word imagine about that. And so thank you, everybody. And please post your experiences on our Shamans Cave.
Absolutely. I'll look forward to seeing what everyone came up with out of the void. And just another side note, all of our shows are archived on shamanstv.com. And some of our subscribers asked if we could put a donation button on there, because they wanted us to keep manifesting this show, and they wanted to contribute towards it. So we did. And we actually got several people who are doing monthly subscriptions. $10, $20, nothing that's going to break the bank, but it's over there, and you can do that too. And stay tuned for our next episode of the Shamanscape.
Thank you, everyone. Blessings.